Hello. For this Coding with AI session, what I thought I would do is work on a little spreadsheet program in two ways. One is 5 minutes of sort of classic test-driven development approach, and then another 5 minutes using some code assistance with AI, just to compare and contrast how traditional test-driven development would work, and then compare that to how an AI-assisted development experience would look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 5 minutes on a timer, get that started, and then in my IDE, I am going to snooze completions for 5 minutes. And what I have is some tests that I'm going to continue to write. Just to keep things moving along, I have written down the comments for the test so that you can see each test as I go to complete them. So the very first test was to test that if I have an empty spreadsheet, that when I try and get any value, in this case A1 cell, that the value will come back as an empty string. Now I'm going to define the next test as to say test the text value can be a text value can be stored and retrieved. So our test method, I'll follow the arrange. So here we're going to have sheet equals sheet. And it does code completions. This is pretty normal stuff. Act, and the value that we get back from that is going to be what we look at. So sheet dot get A1. So we haven't fully arranged here. What we want is that I want to be able to put a value in there. So the way I put a value in there is I'm going to say A1, let's put in our expected value. Well, before we actually insert that, we'll say expected value is equal to, let's say, hello world. Okay, so what we want to assert, this is going to be the actual value. We want to make an assertion, and we want to assert that the actual value is going to be equal to the expected value. So now let's run this test. And we see that we have a failure. It's telling us that the put is not implemented. And as you see over here, we're going to write just enough code to store that value. So here I want to, let's say, store hello world. So how could I store hello world? Is I could just say self dot say value equals value. And now when I save this, it's going to say, wait a second, the the blank does not equal hello world. So what we find is here in get, we actually need to return self.value. And let's try this. Wait a second. It can't return the value because there is no internal value. So I want to create something which equals empty string. Let's see if this builds a correct solution. And there we are. So now we've defined an attribute called value. We set it to an empty string. Well, that's all we accomplished in 5 minutes, was basically writing out one more test. What I'd like to do now is to, now that we have code completions on, see how much quicker we go along. So the next test I want to define is something like test multiple cells. So I have this comment just hitting there. And now what we see is it suggests an entire test, which I can just tab and accept. So this is going to create a sheet. It's going to put value 1 and value 2 in. I'm going to get the two values out, and I'll be able to test that that works. Now, when I run this test, you'll see that it immediately comes back and says, nope, that fails. So now I can go over here and try to figure out why that is. Well, I can't control one value holding two puts. So I need some way of sorting them or storing them. And in this case, it makes sense to have some way of storing the cells themselves. So what's happening is the AI is going to say, hey, wouldn't it be handy to have some cells? It's also going to suggest that I actually can put the cell's value in there and retrieve the value. And it's even going to go into the one that I haven't even touched yet. So I'm going to leave that one alone for now and hit the escape. So now it's suggesting that I introduce a variable called cells instead of just value, and that I store the cell, use the cell reference to insert the values. And now all three tests pass. The next test that I think about is what do we do if we have numeric values, and how do we handle them correctly? So test numeric values handled and returned a string. So we're going to have a numeric value, put that in as a string. We're going to get it, and the retrieved value is going to equal the string of the numeric value. So let's save that. It automatically handled that correctly, so that test passed. Let's try the next. Let's try this case, which is that when we call get, it's going to raise a value error for empty cell references. So if we look at the code here, I have a sheet. I just try and go get with an empty, and it's going to return an error. So let's get that test. So we got failed test because it didn't throw the error expected. So that is in the get method. So we go into the get method. Here we want to say if uh, the cell reference is an empty string, then we want to throw the value error. And we can see that it's suggesting pretty good code for us. We like what we see. We go ahead and run the test, and now it passes. So here, I'm getting a lot of good progress because I'm not writing as much of the code. I'm more describing what it is that I want in these comments. So again, I like the code that I see. Save that. And now I run the test. And I've got another problem that it's not throwing exceptions for an invalid put. Again, if the cell reference is an empty string, I want to raise that exception. And so I'm adding some guards to my code. As you can see, I'm moving along a little quicker, always understanding the code, the test code and the code under test. But what's happening is the AI is assisting me by reducing the amount of keystrokes that I have to write in order to get my work done.